Good afternoon, guys. I'm here with Mr. Charles. And Mr. Charles, can you tell me a little bit about your NGO and what your NGO is all about?
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for coming. CETDEM, or the Centre for Environment, Technology and Development Malaysia, a slightly long name, is really focusing on sustainable development. So that is the focus of the NGO. We're actually a non-profit company, a not-for-profit company. And it was set up 36 years ago. The focus is on sustainable development, and within sustainable development we have different streams of work, pillars of work. So as you can see, we are now in the our organic farming community center. This is, if you wish, part of our organic farming project. So one of the streams of work that we focus on is organic farming, and this is one of the things that we do. So we run this center. Okay, so everything you see here, as you can see, we have passion fruit, we have chayotes, stuff which I don't even know. This looks like sweet potato, tapioca, lufas, all over here. This is all organic. Okay, and it's one of the pillars because organic farming is one of the activities from an environmental standpoint that doesn't destroy our environment, okay, and it helps to reduce the impact on climate. So for example, food waste from your house can be composted. So we, as you can see over there, we have composting trays where we compost food waste, garden waste, right? Because if you leave it there and it goes into the landfill, it generates methane, and I think you all may know methane is actually very bad for the climate. Okay, so this is one of the activities we do. We've also had projects in terms of transportation. We had an eco-mobility project. We've had projects on water, waste, energy efficiency. So those are some of the projects that as an NGO, CETDEM actually is involved in.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. I also want to ask, what are your biggest challenges you'll face when coming up with this NGO?
Okay, the challenges come in different areas. Okay, obviously, NGOs basically we need funding, and funding is not necessarily something that's very easy to do. So we do rely on funding. We raise funds through a variety of ways. Obviously, we do get some donations, but usually it's inadequate. We do projects. So when we do a project, we hope to get some money from the project to sustain the NGO. We also, for example, the produce from this area we sell. Okay, so that gets us some money, not a huge amount. And then we also solicit for donations from different corporates or individuals. So that's funding is one big area of a challenge, I guess, for us, because we have to go out there and ensure that we have sufficient funds to keep the organization going. Obviously, we have 1 or 2 full-time people, and they have to be paid as well. So obviously, there are salaries associated with that.
So do you sell your organic?
Some of the products. This is not really a farm, right? We call it a community center. It's really to show people what you can do. So if you've got a garden, you can grow all of this. So it's also a demonstration. So we do have some produce we sell, but it's not like, you've got tons and tons and tons of produce, because it's not really a farm. So we try to make sure that we have different types of crops and produce.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. One more thing. In your NGO, what kind of resources do you need so you can tell our viewers how we can help your NGO?
So typically, what we find is that you need volunteers. Okay, you need volunteers because there's a need for things to get done, right? And obviously, we don't have enough money to pay for a large a team, staff, etc. So volunteers help us a lot. So for example, organic farming, we used to organize something called Hari Organic. Okay, so Hari Organic requires fair amount of work, and then we actually get volunteers to help out. They actually man the stalls. They help put up buntings and banners for publicity. So that's all done on a voluntary basis, because obviously if we were to pay, we would probably run out of money. So resources, people helping is quite important. Passionate people who believe in the concept of sustainable development. who are trying to address issues of climate change. That's also very important.
That's what drives them.
Yeah. So people have come. I mean, we have people come and go, to be fair, but a lot of people have been supporting us for many, many years. And the advantage of that is that then they continue to contribute either in terms of knowledge or in terms of sometimes occasionally money or their time. So that is one of the key things that we look at. We also deal a lot with government departments, so we're involved in things like standards. We're involved in some of the negotiations over climate change. In fact, there's going to be a meeting very soon about Malaysia's position in the climate change talks, the COP talks. So we are involved in that as well, but from a non-government perspective rather than a government perspective.
Okay, Mr. Charles, one final question. What's the kind of impact you wish your NGO would bring to the world?
Okay, I think most people, or not most, some people understand that probably the climate crisis is one of the biggest challenges we have, right, on this earth. And we all know that climate change, there's increase of temperature and the impacts of that. So SETDEM was one of the earliest NGOs in Malaysia to focus on climate, in climate change. Those days we used to call it global warming before the terminology changed. So the whole idea was to bring awareness. So we are actually a research and advocacy NGO. Right? So we don't necessarily, there's some NGOs that go out there and lobby. We do a fair bit of research. So one of the things we have is our other office, which is the one I think Daniel had indicated, SS2, was one of the first houses where we used solar panel. This is going back quite a few years ago. This before, nowadays you see solar panel everywhere. Those days, it was one of the first houses where we put in solar panel. And we actually wanted to demonstrate how you can save energy. That means how you insulate the house, prevent the heat from coming in, because we're in a tropical climate. Sun beats down, heats up the whole house. So you've got to insulate the roofing area, right? We talk about opening windows at night and closing windows in the daytime, which is very... it's quite difficult for Malaysians, because Malaysians like to open window in the day and then close it at night because they're afraid someone will break in. But actually in the day, we open the windows, all the hot air comes in. And in the night, when you close the windows, the cold air remains outside and the hot air remains in. So, which is the wrong way of doing it. We should have it the other way around. That means windows open at night and then let the cool air come in. And in the day, you close the windows. Right? And then we talk about shading. So we put plants or we put foliage to cover the bits where the sun is shining, so you have less of that heat on the building. So that's an example. One of the projects we did, which was energy efficiency, right? So we did that on the other house, not this one, but that was a different one. So with that, we actually can demonstrate to people this is what you can do. We also did the eco-mobility project. So the eco-mobility project was to try and get people to use public transport in PJ. Okay, so we actually did it for households, for normal people, right? And tied to that was the energy efficiency. We did a study of a household, a typical terrace house, to say where is the bulk of energy. And take a guess, where do you think most of our energy is spent from a typical terrace house?
Lighting?
Aircon, not bad. Okay, it's heating and cooling is the second highest. The highest, most people don't think about it, is transportation. Because in PJ, most people drive. And the amount of carbon that is generated by the cars, etc., is much higher than all your light bulbs. Actually, light bulb is very small. People talk about, I replaced the old-fashioned tungsten filament light bulb with LED light bulb. I save so much. Actually, when you do the research, it's very small. Heating and cooling. Hot water heater if you don't have a solar heater, air conditioning, your iron, that takes a lot of power, energy. Okay, lighting is really far down at the bottom, but the number one is actually transport. Taking the car, driving. Most houses, unfortunately, in PJ, 3 people, 3 cars. So when you add it all up, actually it's number one. So again, that is, we did the research. Actually, our research has been quoted quite extensively by quite a few papers. But the idea is that was one of the things that we actually wanted to get out so people are aware. And then we also work with, public transport, so that we actually provide last mile public transportation, because that's a big problem we have today. Right? You can't come the last mile there, therefore most people will say, okay, I'll just drive.
Okay, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for your time, Mr.
Okay,
Charles.
thank you. It's been
Volunteer in this work to save the earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Like the bigger ones. Okay, let me just try and see. This I think is yauma vegetables. Okay, if we can come here, you can get a chance to see. I don't even know what this is. Oh, this could be. Oh, this is a kind of pumpkin, isn't it? Okay, and then so this we use this to do compost. This one is, I think, empty, but we use it to do small compost. Ginger flower, I think, and then okay, we just come this way. Okay, compost bin, large scale with wood. And then basically we get garden waste, kitchen waste. It goes inside here. You can see leaves, dried leaves, and then after every so many weeks we'll turn it over, right? And then it will become like soil. It's basically a soil conditioner. So this is the big one for big gardens. This is what you use for small gardens. Okay? This sort of this. You can do the same thing, except you're turning it in there. And then these are all the, the leaves for the next round. Yeah. So it gives you an idea, some papaya trees and so on and so forth. So